Hello, everyone. Welcome to our daily English podcast. Today, we have an exciting episode lined up for you. We're going to dive into some unique experiences and insights from visiting renowned restaurants, the joy of learning new languages, and the humor in understanding jokes.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear about these experiences. So where do we start?
Let's kick things off by talking about a very special restaurant experience. Imagine booking a table at one of the top restaurants in the world, El Celler de Can Roca in Girona, Spain. This place is often ranked among the top 2 or 3 restaurants globally.
Oh my goodness, that sounds incredible. How do you even get a reservation at such a place?
Well, it's quite a process. You have to book a year in advance. Picture this. You go online at 1 minute to midnight, keep refreshing the page until places become available, and then immediately grab a table. It's a bit like trying to get concert tickets for a sold-out show.
That sounds intense. So after waiting a whole year, what was it like when the day finally arrived?
The anticipation was through the roof. It was a boiling hot day in Girona, around 44 degrees. We were waiting in our hotel room, too hot to go outside, just wondering what the dinner would be like. When we finally got there, the place was beautiful, but surprisingly, it didn't feel formal. The staff were friendly and even showed us inside the kitchen.
That must have been fascinating. What was the kitchen like?
It was amazing. It felt like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for adults. There were little olive trees with olive confections hanging from them. The chefs were making incredible dishes, and no one seemed stressed, or at least they did a great job pretending they weren't.
I can only imagine. What was the best dish you had?
One of the most memorable dishes was a sheep-themed dessert. It was like a woolly sheep made from candy floss, representing the wool. The sound of the spoon on the bowl mimicked the bell on a sheep in the field. There was even a scent to smell that reminded you of wool. It sounds strange, but it was delicious.
That sounds so creative and immersive. It's like they engaged all your senses.
Exactly. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Now, let's transition to another fascinating topic, the joy of learning new languages. Giovanni Minicucci, a PhD student and language instructor, shared his journey of growing up in Italy and learning multiple languages.
Learning languages can be so rewarding. What did Giovanni say about his experience?
Exactly. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Now, let's transition to another fascinating topic, the joy of learning new languages. Giovanni Minicucci, a PhD student and language instructor, shared his journey of growing up in Italy and learning multiple languages.
Learning languages can be so rewarding. What did Giovanni say about his experience?
Hold on. Before we dive into languages, let's wrap up our restaurant experience. Joe's visit to El Celler de Can Roca in Girona, Spain, is a story worth exploring in more detail.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all ears. So, Joe, you mentioned the anticipation of securing a reservation a year in advance. That must have been quite the wait.
Yes, it was. Imagine the excitement and nervousness building up over 12 months. When the day finally came, it was scorching hot, 44 degrees, and we were just waiting in our hotel room, too hot to go outside.
That sounds almost unbearable, but it must have made the experience even more memorable.
Definitely. When we arrived at the restaurant, the atmosphere was surprisingly relaxed. The staff were incredibly friendly, and they even took us on a tour of the kitchen.
A tour of the kitchen? That's not something you get to do every day. What was it like?
It was like stepping into a culinary wonderland. The chefs were creating these amazing dishes, and the kitchen felt more like a creative studio than a high-pressure environment. There were olive trees with olive confections hanging from them, and everything looked like it was straight out of a storybook.
That sounds magical. And you mentioned a sheep-themed dessert that really stood out. Can you tell us more about that?
Of course. The dessert was designed to engage all your senses. It looked like a woolly sheep made from candy floss, representing the wool. The sound of the spoon on the bowl mimicked the bell on a sheep in the field, and there was even a scent that smelled like wool. It was a multi-sensory experience that was both strange and delicious.
Wow, that's incredible. It's amazing how they managed to create such an immersive experience with food.
It truly was. Every dish was a work of art, and the entire experience was unforgettable. Now, let's move on to Giovanni's journey with languages, which is equally fascinating.
Yes, let's. I'm curious to hear about how Giovanni's multilingual upbringing shaped his perspective on language learning.
It truly was. Every dish was a work of art, and the entire experience was unforgettable. Now, Let's move on to Giovanni's journey with languages, which is equally fascinating.
Yes, let's. I'm curious to hear about how Giovanni's multilingual upbringing shaped his perspective on language learning.
Giovanni grew up in Abruzzo, Italy, a place rich with history and regional dialects. Italian was his first language, but he quickly became fascinated with other languages. He started with English, then moved on to French, Spanish, and Portuguese.
That's quite a linguistic repertoire. How did he manage to learn so many languages?
Giovanni emphasizes the importance of immersion and real-world application. His first major experience was as an exchange student in Rochester, New York. He was surrounded by English, not just the formal version he learned in school, but the everyday, colloquial language.
Immersion sounds like a powerful method. Did he find it challenging at first?
Absolutely. He struggled initially with things like ordering coffee or joining casual conversations, but immersion pushed him to adapt quickly. He learned to pay closer attention to context cues, listen actively, and embrace his mistakes as part of the learning process.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like being thrown into the deep end of the pool and learning to swim.
Exactly. Giovanni's experiences abroad, especially in Spain, deepened his understanding of immersion. He realized that language is inseparable from its cultural context. Walking through the streets of Granada or listening to flamenco in Andalusia, he saw how language and culture are intertwined.
It sounds like learning a new language is not just about the words, but about experiencing a whole new way of life.
Precisely. Giovanni also founded IELTS USA, a language exchange program that connects students from different continents. This program goes beyond grammar and vocabulary, fostering real-time conversations and cultural exchanges.
That's amazing. How does IELTS USA work?
The program pairs American and Italian students for bilingual conversations. It encourages dialogue, curiosity, and mutual learning. Students gain insights into each other's cultures, breaking down stereotypes and forming genuine connections.
It sounds like a fantastic way to learn and grow. What about adults who want to learn a new language? Any advice from Giovanni?
Giovanni believes it's never too late to learn a new language. Adults often have specific goals and motivations, which can be powerful drivers. They bring life experiences that help them recognize patterns and apply what they've learned to real-world situations.
That's encouraging to hear. So, adults might actually have some advantages over younger learners?
Yes, indeed. Adults can use metacognition to reflect on their learning process and tailor their strategies. They also have the cultural and emotional maturity to appreciate the nuances of language, like humor and idioms.
It's inspiring to think that language learning can be a lifelong journey. Any tips for adults starting their language journey?
Start small with phrases you'll use often. Embrace mistakes as part of the process. Stay consistent with daily practice. And most importantly, have fun with it. Choose materials and activities you enjoy, like music, films, or cultural events.
Great advice. It's all about making the learning process enjoyable and relevant to your life.
Exactly. Language learning opens up new connections, experiences, and perspectives. It's a journey that enriches your life in countless ways.
I'm feeling inspired already. Now let's move on to our next topic, the humor in understanding jokes and how it can aid language learning.
Exactly. Language learning opens up new connections, experiences, and perspectives. It's a journey that enriches your life in countless ways.
I'm feeling inspired already. Now let's move on to our next topic, the humor in understanding jokes and how it can aid language learning.
Absolutely. Humor is a fantastic tool for language learning. Luke's English podcast does a great job of using jokes to teach vocabulary and cultural nuances.
That's interesting. How does dissecting jokes help with language learning?
When you break down a joke, you often uncover double meanings, idioms, and cultural references. This process not only expands your vocabulary, but also gives you insight into how native speakers think and communicate.
Can you give us an example of a joke and explain it?
Sure. Here's a classic one. Why can't dinosaurs clap their hands? Because they're extinct. The humor here relies on the double meaning of can't. It plays on the expectation that dinosaurs physically can't clap, but the punchline reveals it's because they no longer exist.
Ah, I get it. It's a simple joke, but it makes you think about the language and the logic behind it.
Exactly. Here's another one. Why did the math book look sad? Because it had too many problems. This joke uses the double meaning of problems, math problems and personal issues.
That's clever. It's a great way to learn how words can have different meanings in different contexts.
Yes, and it makes the learning process fun and engaging. By understanding jokes, you also get a glimpse into the culture and humor of the language you're learning.
It's like getting an insider's view of the language. Any other examples?
Here's one more. What do you call security guards working outside Samsung shops? Guardians of the Galaxy. This joke is a play on words, referencing the popular movie Guardians of the Galaxy and the fact that Samsung is a tech company known for its Galaxy products.
That's hilarious. It's amazing how jokes can connect different ideas and references.
Exactly. Humor makes language learning memorable. When you laugh at a joke, you're more likely to remember the vocabulary and the cultural context.
It's a win-win situation. You get to laugh and learn at the same time.
Absolutely. So, for anyone learning a new language, I highly recommend incorporating humor into your studies. Listen to comedy shows, read jokes, and try to understand the humor. It's a fun and effective way to improve your language skills.
I'll definitely give it a try. This has been such an enlightening discussion. From the culinary wonders of El Sayer de Can Roca to the joys of learning languages and the humor in jokes, we've covered a lot today.
We certainly have. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you found this episode both enjoyable and informative. Until next time, keep exploring, learning, and laughing.